Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. I'm hoping to be making a episode of this every week. The podcast is going to focus primarily on the LCK, although other topics will come up. But we'll be reviewing the LCK games each week, so as a weekly show, talking about what's happened, meta picks, things like that. In this first one, we're going to talk about the transfers that have happened, the new rosters. We're going to talk about the new season, things that have changed. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. As you can see, I've got a guest on screen. Now, this week there is no guest. There's just me, a little Poro. I've also got my camera on for a change. So there's that. And yeah, you can see my screen here. So I'm hoping to get some guests on from time to time. That would be cool. We'll see who we can get. I'm sure Foz will be on here every now and again. But yeah, as you can see, the podcast is yet to be named. So for now, the name of the show is The Podcast Yet to Be Named. Now, the topic is LCK, of course, and meta, and we'll be talking a lot about draft as well, as per usual on my channel. So in the comments, if you guys have any suggestions for names for this show, I would be very appreciative of that. And who knows, you might just be the one who gets to name the show. We'll see what you've got. I have been trying to come up with ideas and I can think of absolutely nothing. So yeah, any good ideas, drop them in the comments, see what we come up with. So to start the show today, I want to talk about the new teams in the LCK, because there's a lot of changes this year, a lot of roster moves, which is not so typical for the LCK. Things tend to stay somewhat standard, and there's some really big ones. So I'm going to be making a tier list and talking about each team. Let's order them. So it's like D+, DRX. I should have done this beforehand, really, but I wasn't thinking. Then it's FRX, then Genji, Hanwha, KT, Kwangdong. Oops. And then it'll be Nongshim, Bro, and T1. Okay, so now we're talking about them in the order that they appear on here, which is alphabetical. So to start out, we've got my favourite team. Anyone who's a long-time fan of my channel will know that I have been a Dom1 or now D+ fan since 2019. Every year I support this team. I buy the icon and the emote. Every single year I go into Worlds, and every year I'm watching to hope they do well. And the big reason for that is that I've been a huge fan of the Canyon Showmaker duo. But for the first time in the history of the organisation, we won't be seeing those two play together. So Canyon has gone. Kana has also gone. And Deft has also gone. But Canyon leaving is the big news. Replaced with the Academy or LCK Challenger player, Lucid, from D+ Challengers. Now, people are calling Lucid Baby Canyon. If you watch D+ Challengers, this guy is hard carrying almost every game that he plays. He is by far and away the best prospective jungler from LCK Challengers. And what was the tournament that they played? It was like the LCK Open Day or something, where there was Team Jungle, Team Mid, Team AD Carry, etc. And they played against each other. The teams were composed of 5 players from each role from the LCK. And Lucid was playing mid lane for Team Jungle, and I think it was a really good opportunity for him to showcase his hands. This kid has insane mechanics. So while I'm very sad that the Canyon Showmaker duo is now over, we may never see that again. It depends how roster moves go in the future. I'm extremely excited to watch Lucid play. I'm more disappointed about the top lane move. Getting rid of Kana to get Kingen. Obviously, Kingen, he's a world champion. He's actually a World Finals MVP. This guy, he has his ups and downs, right? But alongside Lucid, there was a player on Dom1 or D+ Challengers. Well, there were 2 players on D+ Challengers, I think. But one of the players alongside Lucid was Thanatos, which is D+ Challengers top laner. And while his performance was not as good as Lucid, Lucid was very much like maybe like a Pays or a Zeus, where these players are very hyped and people know they're extremely good, like generational talents by the look of things. Whereas Thanatos is more like, he's outperforming the other top laners. So people were expecting him to get a promotion into the LCK. He for sure deserves an LCK spot. But Kingen coming in instead. Now, obviously a good player. Potentially would perform better than Thanatos, but it's disappointing that we don't get to see this player in LCK. Now, the rumoured reason that Kingen is coming into the top lane rather than Thanatos is that Aiming, the AD carry replacing Deft, used to be playing for KT last year. Aiming only wanted to join the team if one Challengers player was promoted. He didn't want to join with 2 Challengers players. That was his condition. So based on that, we get Aiming, we get Kingen, we keep Kellen. Now, Kellen had a really, really bad Worlds, and people will remember that, especially on Alistar. But Kellen was really good in the Gauntlet and for a reasonable amount of LCK, actually. I remember 2023 Spring started with Deft Kellen looking like the best bot lane in LCK. That changed later, but, you know, Kellen had an up and down year as well. So, where would I put this team? I think this team's like an A-tier team. They're unlikely to win LCK, much to my dismay. I often overrate this team. Maybe I overrate them. I don't know. I think I'm pretty fair on them, to be honest. But they're definitely... Oops. Spoiler for later. They're definitely better than a lot of these other teams. But yeah, I think A tier... Let's define the tiers, right? S tier is like title contenders, I suppose. Like, these are the teams that you think, okay, they have a shot at winning LCK. A tier is like, they can't win, but they're going to do well. Maybe like a 13-5 team or a 12-6 team, that sort of score bracket. B, I'm looking at like 9 and 9, you know, like middle of the pack. C is going to be like 7, 12, 7, 11, 6, 12, maybe. And then D, I'm looking at, like, you know, these are the teams that could go 0-8. These are the stinkers. Well, let's rename this to F, just to really, really cement that. So yeah, D+ going into A tier. DRX, Rascal staying. Croco replaced with Sponge, and Fate replaced with Setab. I believe these are both the DRX Challengers players. DRX Challengers was pretty good, actually. I believe DRX, Nongshim, and D+ were the best Challengers teams throughout the year, but I could be wrong. Paddock being replaced with Teddy. Now, this is obviously a big upgrade. Always like to see Teddy play. And then losing Beryl is probably a downgrade. This player gets memed a lot, but he is obviously very good, and there's some sort of magic that he brings to a team. Teams that he's on just seem to perform better than they should. But yeah, replaced with Pliata. I don't know a lot about this guy, so a lot of unknown variables. What I do know is that Setab and Sponge are probably decent because they were on one of the better Challenger teams. Pliata I know absolutely nothing about. I know that Teddy is solid as a rock, and Rascal's pretty good. So where would I rate this team? I'm going to put them in like the C tier. I don't think this team's going to quite break even. I don't think they're going to get to the 9-9 sort of scoreline of B tier. But I think they're going to be better than some of the teams we're going to see in F tier. Let's move on to Fear X. So they dropped Birdolph for Clear. I think... Did this guy play last year? I can't remember if this guy played last year or not. Willer's staying. Closer's staying. This is a big one because Closer, probably their best player. But they're losing Teddy, which is definitely... for Henna. Henna was the old bro AD carry, I think. So getting a little bit of the Reddit bro into the team. And then Kyle, I think Kyle was actually really solid. So I'm sad to see Kyle go. So I think overall this is maybe a downgrade. Execute, I believe, is Jong-hoon from Astralis. Jong-hoon lol. Yeah, Execute. So Jong-hoon was in the LEC playing for Astralis. He's now back in the LCK. Or I think this is his first time in the LCK, actually. I think he was in Challengers, but he's now called Execute. So I think this is a downgrade for FRX, and let's look, where did they finish 2023? 2023 LCK summer. So they finished up at a 5-13. Now, everyone except, like, there was a massive split last year between the top 5 and the bottom 5. These bottom 5 were all just fighting each other while these top 5 were fighting each other. So yeah, I think Live Sandbox were realistically like middle of the pack, you know, like 6th, 7th place team. I think they're probably going to be somewhere there again. I mean, they're called FRX now, not Live Sandbox. I don't know how I feel about this logo, by the way. I'd be interested to see what you guys think of this logo. I think it looks a little, like, cringe, in a way, if you get what I mean. But, yeah, not sure about that one. So they're going into C tier for me. I think they're going to end with, like, a 6-12 sort of scoreline. Kind of similar to what they did last year. I think they're going to do about the same this year. Gen G. Now, this is spicy. Doran gone, Keen in. Right, Keen also had a rough Worlds, kind of like Kellen, but you look at the rest of the year, this guy was a fucking monster. So there is no way you can convince me this is anything but an upgrade. Keen was insane for the whole year except Worlds, right? It's kind of like how people maybe now, like, I don't know, I doubt people underrate JDG, but Keen is JDG as a top laner. Right? Like, really good all year, dropped off at Worlds. I don't think JDG maybe even dropped off. I think the finals just happened in the quarterfinals, or semifinals rather, but you get the point, right? Keen was really good all year. So Keen, definitely an upgrade. Peanut for Canyon. Who knows, right? Canyon is probably, for me, I mean, I'm the Domon fan, right? But for me, I think he's the greatest jungler of all time. I just think he is the GOAT. So wherever he goes, I will watch this player and I will support this player. I think this is an upgrade, but there's a big caveat on that. Will he work with Chovy? Chovy stays. Pays also stays. Will he work with Chovy? I think yes. The reason I think yes is that Chovy is less unwilling to play for his jungler than he has been in the past. Or unwilling to play around his side lanes. Especially on champions like Ahri. I think Chovy still could be the best Ahri in the world. The play against G2 at MSI still lives rent-free in my head. That's probably the best Ahri play I've ever seen, when he 1v4'd them in bot lane. Yeah, so Chovy also likes to play things like Galio. Chovy's other best play of all time was on Galio. He plays set mid, you know. Chovy does like to play champions that enable the jungler. Now, the other thing is Delight is out and Lehens is back to Gen G. Now, we know Chovy Lehens works. They won LCK together. We also know Keen Lehens works because they just almost... They came first in the regular season in LCK together on KT. This year just gone. So... will this lineup work? The only insight we have are 2 leaked scrims. I believe there was 2. One was against Kwangdong Freaks, which I'll get to later, but it was... both of these are also just one game, right? But it seemed like Gen G lost. Now, take from that what you will. It's one game, it's scrims, it's new season, new items, a lot of things have changed. But they did lose. And I believe there was also a leaked scrim between Hanwha Life and Gen G, where Gen G also lost. So Gen G don't seem to be doing too well in the scrim bucks category. But I still think, with the pieces that they have, this team has a chance of winning LCK. I think it'd be silly to write them off. They've won, 3 LCKs in a row? Summer, spring, summer? Yeah, 3. So you have to... Sorry, wrong tab again. You have to put them in S tier. You just have to. They have a chance of winning, and these are the title contenders. So, Gen G going to S. Hanwha Life Esports. I think this is the other big one, aside from Gen G. This is kind of Gen G from last year. So, they got rid of Kingen, they got rid of Grizzly. This is really big, by the way. Grizzly was serviceable at best last year. They got rid of Life, so Viper finally has a support. What did they replace them with? Doran, Peanut, Delight. So this is Gen G from last year, but instead of Pays, you have Viper, upgrade. Instead of Chovy, you have Zeka. Circumstantial upgrade. Like, if it's a Carly Silas meta, upgrade. If it's not, he's still okay. He'll still play Akali Sylas. It just won't be as broken as if it's Akali Sylas meta. This team looks really good. This team looks really, really good. We know that the biggest thing for me is that there's so many known factors, right? You know what you're getting with Viper. You know what you're getting with Delight, Peanut, Doran. You know what you're getting with Zeka. Will Zeka work with Peanut? I think so. Zeka likes to play champions that move around the map, and Peanut likes to play champions that can enable his mid. Zeka's going to be on these carry picks, like the Akali, like the Sylas. Yeah, I think these two will work together. Also, Zeka has a kind of inting tendency, whereas Peanut is more of a brains jungler. He might be able to help with that in a way. So I think this team's going to be really, really good, and I think they're another title contender. I think they go into S tier. I keep clicking this wrong tab, but I will learn, I promise. KT Rollster. Keen gone. Perfect coming in. So this is their Challengers top laner, I believe, and I'm going to admit I know absolutely nothing about him. Cuz out, Pyoshik in. I don't think there's any way or any world where you can say this is anything but a downgrade, unless somehow it becomes Worlds 2023 finals, in which case Pyoshik suddenly becomes good. But I think we can all talk that down to more of a T1 underperformance than anything. But I mean, DRX definitely did overperform. Still, BDD staying, aiming replaced with Deft, so swapping AD carries with D+. Towards the end of the year, by the way, I didn't mention this when I talked about D+, because Deft left, but now it's time to talk about it because this is the team he's on. Towards the end of the year, Deft was really performing. He wasn't so great at Worlds, but in LCK, he was not being played around at all, really, but he was still leading the damage per minute. And as an AD carry, that's kind of insane. And I don't think Kellen was particularly great either. Like, he was good. He was good in LCK. He was a lot better than he was at Worlds. But yeah, Deft had a really good end to the year, if you exclude Worlds. So Deft, certainly not to be ruled out yet. I think this is a side grade. I think these two players are sort of as good as each other. We'll have to see if this can be Deft's last dance, because he's now back with Beryl. And again, I think I would say this is a downgrade individually, but we know that Beryl works well with Deft. This is a proven dynamic that Deft Beryl works. Again, we know Pyoshik works with this, and I can see BDD working really well with a Deft Beryl bot lane. Like, BDD likes to play around his bot lane. He's the TF guy, the Talia guy, these sorts of picks, right? Zoe, he likes to push waves and play around his bot lane. I think this is going to work. I don't think it's a title contender, especially with Perfect in the top lane being an unknown quantity. If this guy's absolutely cracked, then maybe this team could win LCK. But I would probably put them just below Damwon, but in the same tier. So sort of here. So I think these two teams are going to go like 12-6 or 13-5 or something like that. Maybe that's too high. Maybe like 11-7, 12-6, that sort of scoreline. I'm doing it again. I think they're going to be good, though. I think KT are going to be good. Kwangdong Freaks. Little spoiler. I think this is going to be the last team that I put above C tier. And I think this team might be in a tier of its own, for a little spoiler. So you have Dudu staying. Dudu is really promising. I think he was maybe the 4th best top lane in LCK last year. It would have been Keen, Doran, Zeus, and I think Dudu can go there. I think Dudu was probably the best player on his team last year. Youngjae replaced for Cuz. I think this is an upgrade. I think Cuz is a really good player, and him and BDD were kind of the heart of the KT macro for me. You could put some of that on Lahens as well. I think Aiming and Keen sort of did their thing, but they weren't so much big parts of the macro play, if you get what I mean. So I think this is an upgrade, and then the rest of the roster's the same. Now, what do we know about this roster? We know that they looked, until they started losing, at the very end, I think they looked like the best of the bottom of the barrel. last year. So at the end of last year, you remember I said there was a big split between the top 5 and the bottom 5 in the LCK. I think that Kwangdong consistently until the very end looked like the best of the bottom 5. Now, what rumors do we have? One, I've already talked about that scrim they won against Gen G, and it looked like quite a convincing win from the scoreboard. Two, this team was T1's scrim partner going into Worlds Finals. And we know from what, I believe it was Taeyun talking about it, but it could have been someone different. Maybe it was Bulldog. I'm not sure, but I think it was Taeyun. They were getting obliterated by T1. But they scrimmed them so many times until eventually it was getting closer and closer, and they were picking up the game here or there, the odd game here or there. And eventually, their win rate improved and improved and improved. This team went through the T1 gauntlet, and we saw what T1 did to teams at Worlds. Aside from that one Gen G game, and maybe the what are they called? The Team Liquid game. But those were their first 2 games at the tournament. Aside from those 2, I think it's fair to say they obliterated everyone, except maybe JDG, where it was a pretty close series, actually. I know the scoreline was 3-1, but it was a pretty close series. But everyone else they mopped the floor with. It wasn't even close. So yeah, I am low-key excited for this team. I want to see the fruits of their labours. Also, anytime CV Max is involved, I have more hope about a team than if he isn't. So I'm going to put them into B tier. I don't think they're going to reach the teams above them. But once again, I think they're going to be above the bottom 4. So they're going to be the top of the bottom 5, which means they're a playoff team. I also think that if Damwon or KT drop off, if one of these rosters doesn't work, that's where Kwangdong sweep in. And if 2 of them drop off, maybe Hanwha Life doesn't work. Maybe Kwangdong can make Worlds. We'll have to see. It's probably a tall ask, but we'll see what happens. Nongshim Red Force. The roster is the same, except they swapped Vital for Jiwoo. Who is Jiwoo? I vaguely remember the name. No, not this Jiwoo. The LOL Jiwoo. I didn't even know there was a K-pop. I'm assuming she's a K-pop person. Okay, he was on Nongshim Academy, Nongshim Challengers, Nongshim Academy, and then Nongshim Red Force. But this guy did win LCK Challengers. So, considering they swapped Vital for Jiwoo, they think it's an upgrade. I didn't think this roster was good last year. I don't think upgrading your AD carry is going to make it any better. I think if your team is bad, you can put whatever it... We've seen this with old iterations of Hanwha Life. If your team is bad, you can put Viper in the AD carry position, and he's not going to be able to do anything. It's just not going to happen. Gone are the days where Teddy could be the Fountain Laser and 1v9 on Jinna. The game doesn't work like that anymore. So, yeah, Nongshim, for me, they're bottom of the barrel. They're going into F tier. I think they're one of the 2 worst rosters in the league. And the other one, unsurprisingly, is not going to be this one. It's going to be Brion. They kept Morgan. They swapped Umti for Gideon. I think this is probably like a side grade. Umti went to Team Liquid, I think. Gideon coming in. They swapped Karis for Karis. They didn't swap him. I don't know why I said that. They kept Effort as well, and they swapped Henna for Envy. I don't know. I don't know that much about Envy. I thought Henna was okay. I think Henna going to FRX is like okay as a replacement for Teddy. I don't think he's going to be as good as Teddy, but we'll see. Let's have a look at Envy. Who is this guy? Oh, he was on Sandbox. And then LGD. LGD. How did they do? I didn't watch enough like bottom LPL. LPL Summer 2023. Like, I didn't watch any LGD. They came dead last. Yeah, this team's going in F tier. They have a great name. I believe they're called like OK Man Bro now, which is pretty solid. Aside from the name, there is nothing about this team that excites me. Which leads us into the World Champions with the unchanged roster. Arguably, at Worlds, I think every single player was best in their role at the tournament. I think the outstanding performers were Zeus and Ona. These 2 just dominated, particularly in finals, Zeus dominated, but Zeus kind of clapped everyone not called Bin, and Ona clapped everyone. So, actually, Ona clapped everyone not called Pyoshik. But, again, by the way. But yeah, T1, it's a disservice to put them in S tier. T1 have to go in S plus tier. Because this team, by all reasonable expectations, should win LCK. And hopefully they've now broken the curse that they had. Maybe confidence issues. If winning Worlds doesn't give you your confidence, I honestly don't know what will. Needless to say, very excited for T1. The expected outcome is that they win Worlds. So, I've thought of something I want to do. Before we move on to what champions I think are going to show up in the meta, I want to talk about what items I think are good in the new system. So if we talk through fighters first, because this is going to be a big thing going into pro play, is like what items are abusable. Triforce. This item stayed mostly the same in terms of cost, but it lost its mythic passive, which was really solid. It also lost the threefold strike passive, which was huge. So for me, Triforce got worse. So there's that. Ravenous Hydra. I think this item also got worse. It got its active back though, which is nice. But you're not going to see things like Hydra Z, Hydra, these Hydra sort of push tempo champs. And it's probably going to be worse as a second item on things like Camille, like Fiora. We might not even see Fiora build Ravenous. And we might see it opt instead for Titanic, which is back with its active. This auto attack reset enables so many things. Things like Starius combos where he stacks it up, or Tom Kench eating you instantly with a Q auto Titanic ult. Or there is, what else is there? Champions like Xin Zhao can dash on you, auto Q Titanic, and then one more auto knocks you up. There's a lot of options with this item having its auto reset back that make it really cool. Glad that's here. I think this is going to see a lot of play. I think a lot of champions are going to like Titanic. Also, I think it might, in a way, bring Shen back. So we might see some Shen in the meta. GA, I don't think this has changed. Oh, wait, 3.2k. Okay, well, this looks terrible. It's too expensive. Orc didn't change really. Like the thing is your first attack now instead of your third or something. Doesn't matter. Death Stand's basically the same. Cyrilda's. This item looks a lot worse for anyone that's not stacking lethality. It only slows when enemies are under half health now, and you get armor pen based on your lethality instead of a flat 30%. I don't think we're going to see much Cyrilda's. Spear of Shojin. This is the item that is dominating fighters at the moment. Like, champions like Aatrox are building this first item. It gives you 35 haste on everything except your ultimate, and it still gives you 20 haste on your ult. And you also gain, what is it? 12% damage on abilities? Is it 3% stacking 4 times? You gain percent increase to your abilities. So Riven, Aatrox, these sort of champs, they're building this. The other one is Sundered Sky. I don't know why I have to click for details. Oh, the description's missing. So basically what this item does is that every 6 seconds per target cooldown, you get a crit. It's kind of like an Aatrox passive. You get like a crit auto that heals you for a percentage of your missing health. It's got Sunder in the name. It's kind of like Sundera in a way, but not as spammable. And I certainly think it will see play. Stridebreaker, this got nerfed. It lost its haste and the slow is down a lot, and you gain some move speed now instead. But yeah, it's definitely worse than it was. Sterax now gives you 20% tenacity on the item. So I think this item is actually really good, especially if you need tenacity. Cleaver. This is where I think we're going to see a lot of the issues with the fighter class. Cleaver's armor shred is down from 30% to 24% at max stacks. It lost 1% per stack. The other thing is that you can no longer buy Cleaver with Cyrilda's or with Lord Doms or with Mortal Reminder. So Garen was buying Cleaver Mortal Reminder. You would see a lot of champions go Cleaver Cyrilda. If you really need to shred through tanks, you don't have that option anymore. It's one or the other, and this is going to make tanks a lot better. On the good, some good news, Experimental Hexplate. This thing seems insane, especially on certain champions. Nocturne is a big one. We'll talk about him later. But basically, you gain 30 ultimate haste as well as some good like stride breaker stats. I would call these stride breaker stats. But then when you pop your ult, you gain a ton of attack speed. I think it's like 30% attack speed, but you also gain 15% move speed for 8 seconds, I believe it is. So this is insane on Nocturne. I think this is insane on Olaf. And there's sure to be other champions that will abuse this. I think Fiora really likes it. Yeah. Big one here. Hullbreaker is dead. This item is just dead. Don't bother reading it. It's gone. This Terminus item I don't think is for fighters. We'll talk about it later. Manamune, basically it's like an on-hit item. Every time you can see what it does. You can go to the wiki, but it's like a new on-hit item that we got. Manamune. Thing's the same, I think. Deadman's now comes with... Oh, it's not there. Deadman's, I'm like 99% sure, now comes with slow resistance on the item. The same as Swiftness Boots. So you can build Deadman's in place of Swiftness Boots and get that slow resist. Wit's End has Tenacity on it. More is still really good. This thing, I don't know, sometimes you need it, I guess. Also, a lot of fighters are going to be building this instead of Mortal Reminder. That's the one, because they can't stack Armor Pen anymore. They're going to already have the Cleaver, so they're going to have to go this one. And then Eclipse. This item's different now, but I think it's good for a lot of fighters. It's just a ton of flat AD with some haste, no lethality, but you still have the passive, and it's only 2.8k. So I think a lot of champs are going to like this. I think this item's pretty good. The only thing to mention here, I think, is that Brutalizer is back. It does basically the same, and it has a little bit less pen than it used to back in the day. And then Tiamat got his active back. Oh, also, this one's really big. Part of why I think Triforce is so bad now is that Sheen got nerfed. It gives 10 haste, but it costs 1,000 gold. This used to be a 700 gold power spike, which you could get with Futures Market on a third wave crash, or you could crash, I believe, 5th wave. Or one thing you could do was crash 4th wave, proxy 5th wave, I think you could do to get Sheen. Now you have to play a lot more to get your Sheen. This is a big nerf. Like 2 extra waves to get Sheen. Marksman. Marksman, I think the crit items are all fairly the same. Kind of underwhelming. You can now go Rageblade with crit. It doesn't remove your crit anymore. And then you have this new Terminus item. Aside from that, everything, I believe, is pretty much the same. Am I missing anything? No. I think crit AD carries are okay. On-hit AD carries are pretty good. And then if we move on to Assassin, I think there's a lot of abuse happening with the Assassin items. This Profane Hydra item I literally haven't seen once, so I think it's bad. GA we've talked about. Cyrilda we've talked about. Sundered Sky, Cleaver we've talked about. Silvermere Dawn. Was that not in fire? Did I just skip over it? Oh. Is this an Assassin item now? No, it's attack damage, health, magic resist. This is your QSS item. Don't need to worry about that. Collector is the same. It gives 2 less lethality, but lethality is flat now instead of scaling, so this is actually a buff, especially if you buy it early. Axiomarch, this looks identical to the old one, I think. Yeah. Maybe the values are slightly different, but the item still does the same thing. Hubris, this is a new item. You kill people. It's kind of like AD Medjai's, and it's bad, as far as I'm aware. This one, though, Voltaic Cyclosword, this is like the AD carry lethality item, and I think MF and Jin are abusing this. It's maybe Samira as well. Your dashes and stealth stack energized faster. It's a Kershey's Shard lethality item. So, it energized attack with lethality. It's very similar to the old Duskblade, if anyone remembers that, before it made you go invisible. It's kind of like that. Yeah. More about Maltius we've talked about. Edge of Night, this is basically the same. Sometimes you will need this if you're playing an assassin. Ghostblade, kind of the same. You don't get that passive lethality out of combat. It's basically the old Ghostblade from before it was a mythic. I was going to say before mythics, but it existed while mythics existed. It just wasn't a mythic itself. What was the assassin item that was a mythic before Ghostblade? Prowler's Claw. That was it. Yeah. Anyway, Opportunity. This is kind of like the Ghostblade mythic that we just lost. It gives you lethality outside of combat, and you gain move speed, and you run around. This one seems okay. Umbral Glaive is still here, and Serpent's Fang is still here. The big thing is that we now have Brutalizer as an option, which builds into a couple of items. Mainly the Cyclo Sword, but also Dirk is so powerful now. I think this item's crazy. So they lowered its cost by 100 gold. It lost 5 AD, which you would think that's not worth, because 5 AD is worth more than 100 gold. 5 AD is worth 175 gold. But it still gives 10 lethality, but if we look at the lethality scaling, lethality, lol. It's now called armor penetration. Lethality as scaling. Here we go. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Patch history? Anywhere? No? No? Okay, so what used to happen is that your lethality, I think it would give you like 6 armor pen for 10 lethality at level 1, and by the time you got to level 18 it would be back at the 10, like the full 10. Now you get the full 10 at level 1, so this is a buff by like 4 armor pen. I mean, you're going to get it at like level 6, so it's probably a buff by like 5 armor pen. By 3 rather. I don't know why I went the other way. It's a buff by like 3 armor pen. 3 armor pen is definitely worth 5 AD. Especially when you consider that it's 100 gold cheaper. So I think Dirk got better, but I think Dirk was already an insane component. So I think Dirk is going to define a lot. Mage items. I've been playing around with this because I'm an ASOL player. This Ludens is okay. That's all I can say about it. This Malignance item is great, but you have to be able to use it. This Seraph's item is decent, and people are rushing it because Ludens isn't really that great, and if their champion can't build Malignance, then you may as well just go Seraph's because you need a Lost Chapter, and these are the only 3 options. Next, Deathcap's basically the same. Gives 20 more AP. Zhonya's, it's more expensive, it gives more AP, and you get your Stopwatch in your Seeker's Arm Guard now. This stops other classes building Stopwatch, so we're not going to see League of Stopwatch this season. That's really big. AD carry is going to be a lot more vulnerable. They're not going to get their Stopwatch. Stopwatch Rune is also gone. It's replaced with something called Triple Tonic, which I think a lot of champions can use really well. I'll probably talk about that at some other time. Shadow Flame. You gain... It's basically the same item, but instead of the old passive where you would gain up to 10 magic pen based on the enemy's health, or if they had a shield, you would always get the full 10. You now crit them, which crit. You deal 20% more damage if they're below 35% health. I think this is worse than the old one, but some people are saying it's really good. I don't think it is, especially because it's 200 gold more expensive, and it doesn't give health, but it does give 20 more AP. But I think this is worse than the old Shadow Flame. Lichbane, did it change? I don't think so. Moving on, Banshees, a lot of AP again. It's kind of like the Zhonya's one. Lots of AP, more expensive. But, you know, it feels less bad to buy these once you've got them. Obviously, the cost is there, but you get a lot of AP when you buy them now, so it feels less bad. Nashers, lost 10 AP. I think the scaling on this is still the same. I'm not sure. The item's basically the same. Void, basically the same. Cosmic, kind of like the old version of Cosmic now. It's all about the move speed. It also gains health back. Riftmaker. This one's really cool. So Riftmaker is kind of like... Well, no, it's just Riftmaker, basically. But it also has the Demonic Embrace passive. So you gain a percentage of your bonus health as AP. And then, obviously, you gain bonus damage the longer you're in combat. Stacks up. And then at full strength, you gain the Omnivamp. This item's actually really good. I've been trying it on Aurelion Sol as like a 4th item. Seems really good. You also get a similar passive on the new Liandry's. This kind of replaced Demonic Embrace. So you get the burn, it gives health and AP, but then you also get increased percent damage for every second in combat with enemy champions, and you can buy both of these. So I think a lot of mages are going to use this. They're going to take both of these, and you get like 16% increased damage once they're stacked up. Actually really good. Talked about Ludens. Storm Surge, this item was broken. I think now it's pretty reasonable, but it's like the best burst mage item in the game. It's been hotfix nerfed twice, I think. And it was also nerfed from where it was originally on PvE. So I think it's been triple nerfed. But yeah, it's pretty good. Malignance I've talked about. Cinder Bloom, or Crypt Bloom, that's what it's called. Crypt Bloom, really, really small heal when you kill someone. You gain some haste on your Void, but you lose 10% Magic Pen. It's also slightly cheaper. I think we might see this sometimes. Maybe champions like Veigar as well, who can bump up the value of this heal. But I'm not convinced by it. I think 10% Magic Pen is too much to give up on. We'll see. Horizon, you now don't get the activation on things that slow or stun or, like that. It has to be when you hit them from 700 range. But when you do, it has a cooldown, 30 seconds, and it triggers, and it does a big, like a 1200 range zone. Reveals everyone around them. So it's like a reveal item now. And it's probably going to be okay. You still get the 10% damage on things like Xerath and Vel'Koz. Not going to be building this as much on Aurelion Sol anymore because the whole point was that my Rylai's, which is kind of unchanged, it lost 15 AP. But yeah, the whole point was that this slowed them, which activated this. That doesn't happen anymore. Rod of Ages, this item's really cheap, but I think it's really weak. Probably needs a buff. Rocket Belt, this got nerfed, I think, but it's pretty good. It's 2600 gold item. You get AP, health, and haste, and it lets you dash on people. Nico's going to build this a lot. Cannon's going to build this, it lets you dash on people. Morello, really cheap, 90 AP, 15 haste, and Grievous Wounds. I think this is the best Grievous Wounds item. Magi still the same. Support items, let's talk about these now because I can't be bothered talking about them later. I don't know why they're in Mage. All I know is that I've seen people walking around with Crown of the Shattered Queen passives on support. It seems really annoying. I don't actually know what any of the support items do. I haven't played a single game of support. We'll see. Tank. This is where things get interesting. Jack Show. This is kind of like the old Stone Plate. Stack it up in combat, you gain, and then you gain resists. I mean, it's kind of like old Jack Show, really. You don't get the big heal, but it multiplies your resists. So champions like Nasus, like Jax, they're going to like this item because it multiplies the bonus resists they gain from their abilities, both of them from their ult. Warmogs, I haven't seen this a single time. Steract have talked about. Heartsteel, this item's still dog shit. This one's new. Kaenic Ruckgun. 80 magic resist, 400 health, and then you gain a fat shield when you're out of combat. It's kind of like Rakan Shield. You have to be like out of combat for a while and it pops up, or like Galio Shield, I think. It's a magic damage shield and it's really big. If the enemy team is like all magic damage, this item's going to be broken. Spirit Visage, kind of the same. Deadman's talked about it, gain the slow resist. Unending Despair. This item's kind of cool. It's like a drain tank item. So every 7 seconds you deal magic damage. It's got some base and then it's based on your max health, and then you heal for 250% of the damage dealt. I'm going to get to a few other items and then I'll come back to this and explain why I like this item. But overall, I don't think this is good unless you do something, which I will talk about later. Also Nature. This item, it got buffed, I think. It's pretty cheap. You gain magic resist, health, and move speed, which is what you want from the item. And then whenever you take magic damage, you get a stack up to 8. This is really good against dot mages like Malzahar. Once you get to 8 stacks, you gain 10% more move speed. So you become really fast because you've got 15% move speed from the item, which is the same as approach velocity, by the way. So if any of you have seen that, you'll know how fast it is. Especially the Nasus players out there. But you also gain another 70 magic resist. So this item's going to give 125 magic resist, which is pretty nuts. Hollow Radiance. This one's really cool. This is like Sunfire Cape, but it gives magic resist. That's basically all I need to say about it. But a lot of tanks are now rushing either Sunfire versus AD or Hollow Radiance versus AP. You can build into either of them with your Bami Cinder now. So it's cool that you've got 2 options. Thornmail, same item. Locket, Randuin, sorry. I'm not going to talk about Locket because it's a support item. Same with Knight's Vow, and I'll talk about this as Zeke's, I guess. I mean, Locket's basically the same. Randuin's, anti-crit, same thing. Iceborne. This item got cheaper. It's 2600 gold. You don't get the damage reduction passive that you used to get, but you get 300 health, 50 armor, and 15 haste, and your Spellblade that slows. I think this item's really cost effective, and that's why it's good. And I think it's better than Trinity Force for this reason. And a lot of Trinity Force users like Nasus, I think Nasus is going to be buying this, especially on Emax. I'll talk about that in another video. I'm going to make an Emax Nasus video. I might make an Aurelion Sol video, but probably not. But definitely going to be making an Emax Nasus one. Anathema's Chains. This is the same thing. Trailblazer, I haven't seen this item at all, but I think it got nerfed. I don't know why I never saw it. If it was needing to get nerfed, it makes you move quick. It's kind of like Righteous Glory, the old one. Or Chem Tank, maybe. Winter's Approach. This item is actually good now. And now that I'm here, and Thimble Winter obviously an extension, the reason it's good is that it's been lowered to 2,400 gold. So, when I was talking about cost effectiveness, you can buy Iceborne and Thimble for 5,000 gold total. That's crazy, because the Iceborne procs the Thimble, and then third item, you can go Unending Despair, and with this setup, you can take Ingenious Hunter. Now, once you've got your Ingenious stacked, your Iceborne goes down to like a 1 second CD. It's like 1.2, I think. So you can proc that a lot, especially on champions that are able to, like Emax Nasus. So you'll see this in the build video when I get to that. It'll proc your Thimble Winter, which will not be a 7-second cooldown on your shield. It will be a 4.7-second cooldown, as will your AoE heal from your Unending Despair. So you're going to be draining them, you're going to be shielding a lot, you're going to be slowing a lot, you're going to be proccing Sheen a lot. So I think these three items have a really good build path with Ingenious Hunter. And when I do that, I'm probably going to be picking up Spirit Visage for my MR item instead of Abyssal, which is the same, still a really good item. I might still go Abyssal if I've got lots of AP on my team, but Spirit Visage is going to amplify this healing and this shielding. Frozen Heart. This item lost 20 armor, I believe, or was it 30? I think it was 20. But it got 400 gold cheaper. This item is crazy. 2,300 gold makes you a beast against AD champs. Really good item. Zeke's, I've seen a lot of people buying. You get a storm around you that does 250 magic damage over 5 seconds when you pop your ult. It gives you some decent stats as well. It's okay. Knight's Vow, basically the same item. So that's all the items. I've talked about what I think is good, what I think is bad. And based on that, if we go into this, we can see what I think is going to dominate pro play, or what we might see in pro play, or what I'd like to see in pro play. So in top, Cassante. First off, one thing you can do on Cassante, which a friend of mine showed me, is that this champion is able to lane not playing Doran Shield. You instead play Ruby Crystal double pot. So Ruby Crystal, 2 health pots, you go to lane, you buy Sheen on your first back, and then you complete this into Iceborne. Iceborne, everyone knows Iceborne is crazy power spike on Cassante, right? Also, the new version of Cassante, this will be the first time we've seen him because he wasn't active at Worlds, like the reworked Cassante, and I think it's overpowered. Yeah, I think it's going to be probably the best or second best top laner on the patch. Yes, so this is going to be a 2,200 gold item because he started Ruby Crystal instead of Doran Shield. Crazy strong, this champ. Also, there's a lot of new toys he's got. He's got Kanik, he's got Force of Nature, he's got this Unending Despair, he's got 2 different Sunfire capes that he can go, he's got the cheap Frozen Heart. Like, this guy, he's got the new Jack Show, so he can go Iceborne and Jack Show instead of having to choose. This guy got better, I think, and he was really good before. Next up, we have Rumble. Rumble was the best champ in the game at Worlds, and I think he is still insane. He has Leandries, which replaces his Demonic. Then he was going Rocket Belt. He can still do that if he wants. It gives okay stats, but I think instead he's going to be going Riftmaker. He's also got the pen items like Storm Surge, Shadow Flame he can use to burn people, crit them when they're low. Void is still good. I think this guy's he's just still going to win lane into everything. And then Jax is still Jax. His W now also affects towers, I think. And there's a couple of new toys that you can play with. You can obviously go Jack Show, like I said earlier, and multiply his resistances. You can also go this Terminus item, which gives resistances and hybrid pen and on hit. And the resistances from this get multiplied by the Jack Show. He's going to go like Trinity 4. Oh, he's got Titanic Hydra as well for an auto reset, so he can play this. He can also go Hexplate if he wants and gain move speed and attack speed when he ults. Sterax if he needs tenacity. He can also go Wit's End for more tenacity. There's this Sundered Sky if he wants that. If he wants a shit ton of haste, he can go Spear of Shojin. So I think Jax is going to be really good. Moore is still really good as well, of course. And then he can slot in, if the enemy's heavy AD, he can slot in a Frozen Heart. If they're heavy AP, he can slot in a Kanik Rukun and just become extremely tanky. So yeah, I think Jax is going to be really good. Jungle, Ivern. This champion's still broken. That's all I need to say. Nocturne. This guy is really strong because of this item. I talked about it earlier, the experimental Hexplate. Lilia. she's going to be doing the new combo of Riftmaker Leandries, which is really, really powerful. So watch out for Lilia playing that. Poppy, a lot of champions with dashes in the game, and Poppy can do the Iceborne Thimble tech. Poppy top also, I put it in jungle, but I think also Poppy top is going to be really good. Iceborne Thimble with the Ingenious Hunter, slotting in the Unending Despair. Really, like, watch out for this build. I'm telling you, this is going to be a thing. I don't think I've seen anyone play it yet. I don't think anyone in LEC has played it, but maybe I'm wrong. I haven't actually been keeping up. I've just been watching the Reddit, like looking at the Reddit threads, so I actually have no idea what's going on in LEC. I'm assuming G2 are just going to win everything, but yeah, we'll see. Galio got buffed at the end of last season, and Rocket Belt is now cheaper, and he can now go Rocket Belt without locking himself out of other items. So I think Galio has the potential to actually be really good. So this is more of a, like, watch out for this guy. Tristana, I still think this champ's really good and really flexible. Nico, like I said earlier, the Rocket Belt thing, she can go Rocket Belt and she can go other items now. Nico obviously was really good on Worlds Patch, and I think she's still really good. And then Anivia, there's this item, Malignance. Every time your ultimate burns someone, every time your ultimate damages someone, you drop a burn pool under them that shreds their MR. And Anivia is crazy with this item, and I thought Anivia was good anyway, and I was a big advocate for Anivia in pro play. And I think she got better now with you go Malignance into Leandries. It's basically the same as Leandries last patch, but you also get this Malignance item. Yeah, I think the champ's really good, is what I'm trying to say. You can also buy Seraphs if you want even more mana, but I don't think she needs it. AD carry. We've seen Callista is still very strong. Lucian Milio and Lucian Nami are strong. Renata, obviously, with Callista. These are sort of pairings. I still think Senna is going to be around with all the Senna pairings. I made a Reddit thread talking about all the different pairings. So if you look for my name on Reddit and go through my post history, you will probably be able to find that. I might make a video on Senna pairings as well, because we only really saw Tom Kench at Worlds. Oh no, we saw Neela as well from T1. That was one of them. But yeah, we saw Tom Kench. Neela as well here. I think Neela is really good with the new items. We talked about Misfortune and Jin with the lethality items. Seraphine bot also doing really well, so watch out for that. And then Ashe support probably still going to be around. All of these supports here are for making sure you have prio in bot lane, and I think this is going to be really important with the way the map works right now. Is that top prio is going to get you the first set of grubs, bot prio is going to get you the first dragon, and then bot can rotate into grubs and then like lane swap, and then you can get the grubs that way. So I still think having bot prio is going to be really important. Rel is here. I think Rel in this slot kind of fills in for all the engaged supports. You can still play them. I think bot lane is pretty open as to what you can play, but having push in bot lane and getting a matchup that favors you is still going to be really important. So, is there anything else I should talk about while I'm here? I don't think so. So, yeah, let's have a look at the schedule, actually. Let's see who we're going to see, and then let's talk about what we think is going to happen. This should be a segment that I do often. I should be looking at what's coming up and what I think is going to happen. So, as you can see, these are being played today on the 17th of January. That's because as of the time of recording this, it's 55 minutes past midnight in the UK. So in about 7 hours, these will be played. And after Sunday's games, I will make another... So next Sunday, expect another episode of this. Maybe there'll be a guest. Maybe there won't. I don't know. Also, maybe there'll be a name. Maybe there won't. I don't know. But let's go through the matchups that we're going to get. So Nongshim versus DRX. I think this is going to be a really good matchup because it's going to give a lot of the new players a chance to show their worth. Nongshim, I mean, they had a lot of their old players too, but DRX, this is going to be really cool. It's a really nice, easy intro game for, what are their names? The mid jungle, Sponge and Setab, that came from the Challenger team. So a really nice intro game for them. Then a fucking banger, like the top two teams playing against each other, T1 Gen G. This is just like a murder. So we go from like, oh, nice chill intro game to murder. I'm going to go back and make predictions, by the way. That would be really cool, because then we can see how my predictions stack up. D+ versus Brion, I think this should be a stomp. But again, it's a nice, easy intro game for Lucid. So that's cool. We get to see what Lucid can do. FRX versus KT. I think KT should just smash this. And again, another one where it's a nice, easy intro game for, what's he called? Perfect? Is that KT's top laner? Perfect. Yeah. So see what Perfect can do up against Clear. Should be a nice, easy intro game for him. Then we get DRX Hanwha. This is going to be a murder, in my opinion. I think Hanwha might be really strong early in the season as well because they've got more known quantities, as I said earlier. T1 Kwangdong, this is the scrim matchup. This is going to be really fun. I'm excited to watch Dudu versus Zeus. FRX Brion, bit of a boring game, honestly, but we'll see if there's anything that hypes us up for that. Nongshim versus Genji, another murder. Kwangdong Hanwha. I'm quietly excited for Kwangdong, so I think this is going to be quite a good game, and I think this will show how good Kwangdong are. Although maybe this Kwangdong team, maybe I'm underestimating them. Maybe they'll show something against T1, but I think they're more likely to show something against Hanwha. Also, how rough is this schedule for Kwangdong, by the way? They're playing T1, then they're playing Hanwha, then they're playing KT. Who are they playing next? Nongshim. Okay, they finally get a breather, but their first 3 matches are kind of rough. But yeah, the last one, KTD+, so this is really cool because this is literally Battle of the A tier. So we'll see who comes out on top of that. So let's make my predictions. And then you can come back and flame me next week. Or you can be like, oh my god, the Prophet, if I get it right. So we'll see. So, today's games. Nongshim, DRX. DRX, I think, are better than Nongshim. They have Rascal Teddy. I think DRX should win this. Is there any way for me to track my predictions? Nah, I'm just going to leave it in the video and... maybe I'll put in the comments or description, like my prediction win rate, or I could put it on the screen or something. We'll see. Production's hopefully going to get better for this. I made this layout myself in like 5 minutes before hitting record, so it can definitely get better than this, but we'll have to see. So yeah, DRX for this one. T1 Genji, I'm going to go T1. I think they are likely still the best team in the world, especially with LPL looking weaker on the whole with JDG breaking up. BLG getting slightly stronger though, but I still think T1 are likely the best team in the world. Brion versus D+, this is a D+, so we're going DRX, T1, D+, KT for this one. Hanwha Life versus DRX, I'm going to go Hanwha Life. T1 Kwangdong, I'm going to go T1. FRX Brion, I'm going to go FRX. Let me just have a look at their roster again really quick. But I think I'm going FRX. They're Clear, Willa, Closer, Henna, Execute. Yeah, definitely FRX over Brion for me. Where are we? Yeah. Sunday. This is... Oh no, Nongshim Genji. This is Genji. Kwangdong Hanwha Life. I'm going to go Hanwha Life. Unfortunately... no, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go Kwangdong Freaks for this game. I think KDF are gonna come out swinging after they lose to T1, and maybe Hanwha get complacent after having a nice easy win against DRX. And then finally, KT D+. It would be wrong of me as a long-time D+ fan to not predict them. So my predictions this week are DRX to win, then T1 to win, then D+ to win, then KT to win, then Hanwha Life to win, then T1 to win, then FRX to win, then Genji to win, then Kwangdong Freaks to win, and then D+ Kia to win. And on that note, thank you for watching the first ever episode of the podcast yet to be named. Actually, you know what, it could be quite funny to just keep it going forever as the podcast yet to be named, but I will be looking out in the comments for any good names that you guys might have. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll look forward to watching the games this week and making the next episode at the end of the week. So yeah, see you guys later. Bye.